This is Chris Yandek, and you're on C1Review.com. As college basketball season tipped off this week, a deep roster is outed. John Wooden, 10 national titles in a 12-year span at UCLA and over 600 wins, died this past June 4th at the age of 99. One of Wooden's former players, Andy Hill, spoke with me earlier this year prior to the passing of the legend. Hill is one of only 13 players in the history of college basketball to have won 3 consecutive national titles during his time at UCLA. His life after college, propelled forward by hard work, led him to the top of the media realm as president of CBS Productions from 1991 to 1996. Under Hill's watch at CBS, it was the first time in history of broadcast television that one studio had programmed all 6 half hours on a network, and not just programmed all 6 half hours, but won all 6 half hours. And that was Andy Hill and CBS Productions, which he says was a very small operation. Whether it's the state of the media, what we need to know to get America back on a productive track, or sharing memories of the legendary Coach Wooden, Andy Hill gives us a conversation for the ages earlier this year that only one could be motivated from and learn so many things about life and how to move forward. Andy Hill, thank you so much for joining me today. How you doing?
Hey, I'm doing great, Chris. Thanks for having me on.
You're very welcome. I'd like you to first start off. Tell me a little bit about the Hollywood and Catfish newsletter. People can find out more information at hollywoodandcatfish.com. Sure. But what I'd like to know, it's like the emphasis of coaching. Is it the emphasis of getting to where you want to be in life? Tell me about basically the basics behind it.
Well, the basics behind it are the notion that, and I think, we're just coming out of March Madness and the Final Four, and so much focus on the coaches and clearly understanding the impact coaches can have on a game. And yet for most of us in life, when we get out of college or are no longer competing in athletics, that's the last opportunity we've really had in life to have a coach. And what we all know is that game of life doesn't get easier, it just gets tougher. And particularly when you're engaged in a professional context, where you're always hoping to get that kind of coaching within your corporate structure, but having spent my life in the business world, I know that you can go your whole life hoping to have it, and it never happens. And so what my friend Tom Bartow, Gene Bartow's nephew, Gene was the coach at UCLA after John Wooden, and he's known Coach for decades. Tom has been the top broker trainer probably in America for the last 30 years, working for American Funds and Edward Jones, and he came to me with this idea of, there's so many people in the financial profession who are sort of out there on their own, managing their own business, doing it on their own. Wouldn't it be great to give them some individual coaching through a newsletter? Now, I do coaching at Fox Studios for major studio executives on a one-on-one basis. It's prohibitively expensive for an individual to do that. Mm-hmm. So what we've tried to do is take these great lessons that we learned, Tom and I, from John Wooden, put them into Hollywood and Catfish in kind of bite-sized units so that people through the course of a year can really feel like they've got John Wooden on their shoulder, coaching them to whatever their level of success might be. But clearly what I know is I'd always bet on the team with the great coach as opposed to the guy who was out there trying to do it on his own. And I think that too many people in the business world are out there trying to get it done on their own, and we're just trying to give them a leg up and an opportunity to be their best.
Well, I look at that and I say to myself, and a few things come to mind. Number one, obviously the state of the media and how it's changing. There have been layoffs, at the former company that used to work with CBS, among ABC and other ones. But also what I'd like to say with that is just, do you think in general, with what you're doing, the state of Hollywood, the state of just the world and the business and the economy world, that, maybe if the people had more coaching, more leadership, more identity, that maybe we would have maybe avoided some of the problems that we're currently at?
That is absolutely true, Chris. And of course what Coach would say is we shouldn't look backwards, we should look forwards, but there's always something to be learned if you don't get overly focused on where we've come from. And, when Coach graduated from grade school, his daddy gave him a little card on it and had a couple lists of 3s. One of them was don't whine, don't complain, and don't make excuses, which I think most people in the workplace who are fighting for time could pick up 30 minutes to an hour every day if they just stopped that behavior alone. But the other list of 3 that he got from his dad was don't lie, don't cheat, and don't steal. Now, what we all know is that if the people on Wall Street didn't lie, cheat, and steal, we'd all be in a better spot today. If these people didn't take crazy risk with someone else's money. We wouldn't be where we are today if these people didn't pay themselves completely out of proportion to anything that makes sense. We'd all be in better shape today. So I think that obviously, John Wooden to me represents the best of what America is. Hard work, integrity, caring, accountable leadership. And if we all had more of that, there is no doubt in my mind that far too many of people who are in our middle class who now can't seem to find a gig and are unemployed and looking around would still be working, because we would have managed our future better and we would have been much more conservative in how we approached growing our businesses, as opposed to acting like money is that we're all in Las Vegas playing some high stakes poker game, because that's not what we're doing. We're really influencing people's lives. And John Wooden was always so concerned with individuals and how they were doing, as opposed to his own success and his own financial rewards. That was never what he was about.
Well, I'd love to know, and confirm this for me again, so to make sure that I'm correct. You did not speak to Coach Wooden for over 2 decades after leaving UCLA, correct?
That's correct. I graduated, Chris, in 1972, and I was very unhappy with not playing. Now, I had been on a legendary team. This all seems crazy to me now that I was that unhappy that I didn't talk to my coach, but the fact is I wanted to play, and I sat there for 3 years. We went 87-3. Not a lot of chances for me to go in and say, Coach, put me in. I played behind a fellow named Henry Bibby, who was in the NBA for many years, and he was probably a little better than me. He was a little better than me. But when you're 20 or 21, you're not really as good at accurately assessing your strengths and weaknesses as perhaps you are as you grow older and become a bit more mature. But when I left, I sort of thought, well, if Coach didn't play me, he must not like me. And who wants to go see the professor who flunked them in their favorite class every year? So I didn't see him for a long, long time. And I can't get that time back, Chris. But I also know that the day I picked that phone up and called John Wooden to say thank you for teaching me everything I needed to know about leadership to succeed in the real world. And honestly, Chris, I was calling just to say thank you. I didn't think I'd ever meet him after that. I didn't know that it would lead to this wonderful relationship we have today. But I knew I needed to say thank you. And I also know that in hindsight, when a lot of people say to me, how do you reconcile those 25 years you didn't speak with John Wooden? I always try and think to myself, okay, how would Coach's philosophy guide me to answer this question? Because his philosophy is so deeply ingrained in all of his former players. And what I know is, I can't look back and get those 25 years back, but I also know that they make my story a little more relatable, a little more impactful when people hear it. And if you'd like to read or listen to this entire insightful interview, click the link below this video, or head over to www.cyinterview.com. Again, that's the letters CY, the word interview.com. This is Chris Yandek. Thanks for listening.